Welcome to a very special edition of Wednesday Night Live. I'm your host, Ralph Lillig. I am so glad that you're joining us tonight. And I told you it's going to be a special edition. It is. You'll see what I mean. But before we get into it, let me tell you, as I do every week at this time, about Compassion and Hope Pregnancy Center. Compassion and Hope Pregnancy Center is a Christ-centered nonprofit ministry offering life-affirming alternatives to abortion and compassionate care to those who face pregnancy and abortion-related issues. It's that simple. They are a very small organization, as I tell you every week. They're on a shoestring. They could use your help. And if you would like to help them, if you'd like to do something for an expectant mother, maybe, as we used to say in the old times, a young girl who's gotten herself in trouble, maybe you can't even talk to her folks about it, she can go to the folks at Compassion and Hope. And you can help by calling 208-478-HOPE. 478-HOPE. Show some compassion and give a mother some hope. Well, we have, we're in the political silly season, and the whole country is going nuts over what we're seeing on Fox television, and of course we don't watch the, what is that, MSNBC, because I have better ratings than they do. But you know, those other channels, they're all talking about the same thing. But for you and me, the old adage about all politics is local is very true. So we're going to talk to someone who fits the bill, I think, for what we're looking for in the candidate for office, somebody to represent us on a local basis. Now, what are we looking for when we're looking for candidates for office? Well, I think most of us are looking for somebody who has integrity, honesty, and maybe most important of all three, ability. We have seen pretty much of the same old now in our local offices, state and local, pretty much the same people running through and being recycled with no new or fresh ideas. In fact, coming up with some pretty bad ideas. And one of those bad ideas is coming out of 28B. 28B is currently held by Kelly Packer. She has been there for some time. I don't think she fits the bill of integrity, honesty, and ability. Our candidate tonight, our guest tonight does. So without beating it to death, may I be so proud as to welcome, it's my honor to welcome Dr. Jason West. Jason, welcome to the program.
Ralph,
I am so glad to have you here.
Absolutely.
We have, now, as I've told you before, and you know, the old disclaimer thing I mentioned before, the West family and my family are friends. I've known Jason's mother for some years. I'm getting to know Jason better. I've known him for several years, but I'm just now getting an idea of the passion that drives this man to do what he does. Jason is a doctor of chiropractic medicine and naturopathic. Did I get that right?
Yes, sir. Naturopathic medical doctor.
There we go. And these, well, we're going to talk about that some. But before we get into the real discussion, Jason, tell us a little about who you are. I'm sure a lot of our audience knows you, but just for those who don't.
Okay, well, I'm a local boy that's made good. I absolutely love my community. I love southeastern Idaho. I grew up in Pocatello. I was born in Murray, Utah because my mom really liked a doctor there, but for all intents and purposes, my whole life has been here outside a church service mission to England, and my schooling, Pocatello is where my heart is, and this is where I've always wanted to be. And
you know, you triggered a thought there about something. Your mom went to Murray, Utah to have you because she liked the doctor there.
True.
Jason West is a destination doctor, and you may have not heard that term before. It's relatively new to me, but the moment I heard it, I understood what it meant. So tell us what a destination doctor is.
Well, a destination doctor is really where people find you and they come for that service. It's not so much a walk-in service or a local service, even though we treat a lot of local people. But people will find us on the internet or through the book that I wrote or the documentaries that I've been in, and then they will come here from Houston, from Abu Dhabi, from South Africa, from literally all over the world. We've had people come from all 50 states and every continent to little booming megatropolis of Pocatello because my team and I decide this is where we want to live.
And you know, that I find that especially special because I don't know if you've had the same experience if you're ordering something online but more if you're calling somebody,
right,
and you say, I'm in Pocatello, Idaho. What is it? Pocket what?
Right.
And yet here we have a doctor who people are coming from all over the world to visit, and right here in little Pocatello, Idaho.
Right.
A native son would say, and that's someone we can be proud of. You triggered a thought there. You triggered something I wanted to mention, and you were talking about documentaries. My wife and I just got to see this last night, and I wish I had seen this. Well, it could have been years ago. It's relative. This is the most recent.
It just came out January 13th was the release date of 2016, this year.
I think, now that Rochelle's my wife, as you regular viewers know, I think that this is one of the important films that you should see this year. And I'm not, I'm not given to hyperbole usually, and I say you need to see this. Now, there's a reason I feel that strongly about it, and there's a reason why Dr. West is running for seat 28B against Kelly Packer, the incumbent. Rather than my trying to give you all the details on why he's doing it, Jason, tell us a little bit about what's been going on in Boise and what's been happening with your practice and your brothers and sisters in the business.
So, Ralph, one of the things that is interesting is I grew up in politics. I grew up passing out flyers and hanging up signs, and I decided that when I got back to Pocatello, I really wanted to focus on my business and really making that a destination practice. I mean, creating that was not an easy thing to do. Everybody said you can't do it in Pocatello, that there's no regional airport, it's too cold in the wintertime, it's too hard to get to, too off the beaten track, and I ignored them because I knew in my mind if I created it that they would come. And so politics I've always paid attention to, always been, and again, this is what I grew up doing this. And what happened last year is I got a phone call from Ken Andrus and saying, hey, Jason, there is a bill on the basically coming out of the Health and Welfare Committee called HB 181, and I think it is extremely problematic for me. And he said, you need to be aware of this. And I pulled the bill and I read it and I said, oh my gosh, this is not good. And I wanted to voice my opposition to this. And I looked at the the House Health and Welfare Committee, and Kelly Packer was the vice chair, and I said, oh my gosh, I can have some influence on this because I voted for her. She's a constituent of mine. And so what happened was I called her up and she said, you don't understand the issue? And I said, no, I read it. Like, I understand this. I've been on association boards for the last 10 years, either as the president or in the legislative committee. I'm very familiar with this process. And I said, I will drop everything and come over to Boise. And she said, I don't have time for you.
Now, what was the issue at hand? And may I remark here, it seems to me there's a certain arrogance when she said, she's talking to you, who are a man in the industry, a very well-known man in the industry, and she's telling you, you don't understand. She's arrogant enough to say, I understand it, you don't. What exactly is the issue?
It was enormously frustrating to have an understatement, to be told, you don't understand what's going to affect you, and you can still practice medicine the way that, or healthcare, the way that you're doing. And I said, no, it's restricting. And see, the HB 181 it was designed to license based upon where you went to school, not your educational requirements. And it really affected my property right as a naturopathic medical doctor. And so that was one of the things that I was trying to point out to her. And then when I said, look, I'll drop everything and come over and visit with you, she said, I don't have time for you. And I did drop everything. I did go over to Boise. I met with, I think, 13 or 14 other legislators. Many of them were not in my district. But I met with representatives and senators that I felt would listen to me, that gave me the courtesy, and that was the beginning of the frustration was, how come guys from Mountain Home and from Idaho Falls and from Boise and from northern Idaho will hear what I have to say, how it's so important to not only for the patient base, but for my family and my family legacy. We've been in Pocatello 100 years in the same healthcare institution.
And you're fourth generation in the business,
I'm a fourth generation doc. I have 5 sons. And several of them say they want to be doctors, so it's the 5th generation that's coming, and man, that was tough, and that's one of the things that when I decided to run, I'm never ever going to do that to constituents.
You know, it's kind of interesting to me because Kelly Packer is I believe this is her first term. She's a freshman, if I recall.
It's second term.
That's right. She got reelected. Yeah. And I remember when she went up there, she was going to do all these nice things. It seems that she forgot the things that she was going to do. And this is probably one of the foremost thorns in her crown, I guess, that she's done, because there's so many things that she promised the constituency here on various things. We're not going to get into them, that she reneged on them or went the other way. Her voting record, and I shared this with you folks last year when I got the Idaho Freedom Foundation chart that shows where they vote. Kelly Packer's voting for things that you and I care about here in our county. Her record was down there with the lowest Democrat on the list. She voted more often with Democrats against Republican issues than she did with Republicans. So I have some real serious doubts about why she even has the R after her name, to be honest with you. But the arrogance of a legislator, it's not like we're talking about Washington, D.C., where they have very, like 2 minutes to talk to somebody. She has plenty of time to talk to people. And to think that she would attack you, and we need to get into that personal thing in a minute, and attack an entire industry and then not even take the time to talk to you is kind of mind-boggling. Now,
it was shocking, to say the least. Now, I don't always necessarily, I mean, some of the legislators that I visited with, had their concerns, both, positive and the pros and cons. And I don't expect everybody to, absolutely agree with me because I'm a constituent.
Right.
But I do expect them to talk to me.
well, and this is interesting that Ken Andrews is 28A.
Right.
But he gave you the courtesy, and he doesn't represent you. She does.
Yeah,
he gave you
absolutely.
the courtesy of calling you and saying, look, you got something coming down the pike you need to know about.
Well, and not only that, what was one of the most frustrating experiences when I did go to Boise, and I was there for multiple time periods over the next couple of weeks, is one time when we were over there, and when she wouldn't listen to me, I went to my tribe, which is my friends, my family, and my patient base, and I said, listen, this is really going to affect me. This is going to affect your choice as a healthcare provider. It's going to affect as a doctor. I think it's really going to affect the destination practice that we've been in Idaho. And so they started emailing in, and I went over there, and Ken said, you've got to shut off the email. We're getting so much. Here, let me call her. And he actually called her from his office, and she refused to come over and talk to me in Ken Andrus's office.
Why does that not surprise me?
Oh, it's really frustrating. Matter of fact, the reason why we're sitting here, in all honesty, Ralph, is it all stems from a legislator who refused to have civility to one of her constituents. That's why I'm here, because everything went downhill after that.
Now, let me ask you, what is her bone? We can go to two things. What is her bone with the industry that she has to pick on? What's her bone with you? Because it seems like it's very personal.
Well, it's a good question, and the answer is, I don't know. I've been told things from other people, and I can't speak for her, but enormously frustrating when your person that, your elected official will not communicate with you.
Now, I was looking at some papers and things before we came on camera today, and I was very interested to see who Kelly Packer's backers are, the Packer backers. In other words, the people who give her money. And you can look this up. So as I often tell you when I'm giving you information, don't take Ralph Lillig's word for it. Check me out. Keep me honest. But you can look this up yourself and go to the Sunshine Reports for Kelly Packer. And I think you're going to be a little bit surprised where the money comes to back her. May I say, and this may be hyperbole, I would say that she's pretty much bought and paid for by the IMA, the special interest Republican groups, Big Pharma. She is pretty well bought and paid for by people who should know better but don't, but they're willing to pay her way. And so she is the standard bearer for people who have a bone to pick with your industry. And then she took that bone a little further and made it a personal thing by refusing to even talk to a constituent. And she's done this before. Other people in the area have called her on various issues, and her favorite thing to do is first call you a liar and then talk about how hard she's working for you and then shut you off. And I suspect she's probably done all three to you.
You got it.
Probably pretty close.
Right.
Now, there are a lot of misconceptions, and this is why I think I don't want to beat it to death, but I think it's very important that you get a copy of this. I'm trying to make this so we can all see it. That you get a copy of this DVD and look at it. You need to see this. It's very important. May I kind of interject here? My wife's father was a DO. He's dead now, God rest his soul. And the DOs in California went through this exact same scenario 50 years ago, or 55, whatever it was. Right. And it was really, I asked my father-in-law once, I said, why are these people all mad at you? What's wrong with being a DO? And he said, nothing. We have to get the same background as the MDs. It's more like a union that's trying to take over. He said, they don't want to talk to us because we threaten them. And I think that's part of what we're seeing here. You're threatening perhaps some of her friends, the IMA and some of these others, because you do have alternative sources or ways of treatment. Naturopathy is I think, little understood. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
Well, essentially, Ralph, what it is basically doing a natural, non-invasive to more invasive approach. And so I'm not anti-medicine by any means. What it is you want to basically try and And there's a saying in naturopathic medicine called toli causum, which means find the cause. And if you find out what the cause is, a lot of times you can bring significant health improvement. You can help people to achieve and maintain optimal health. And that's really what we practice. We've been practicing that way for, since 1916. And it is, balance, 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 whether it's energy, whether it's biomechanics, whether it's biochemistry. And is any of those cases where we catch people too late or the pathology is too far advanced, then what we do is we integrate or we work with the medical system. And if we can't help people, all that matters is that I get you to the right place. I don't care who gets the credit as long as you got better. And that's the team that we've created at the office, where we take these complex conditions where people are out of hope and out of time and literally out of money. And it's like Humpty Dumpty, we put them back together again. I mean, that's our whole office.
I was very impressed by something that I saw on this tape, and actually you had shared it with me before, and it didn't kind of register as well as it did here, and that was your father, who was your mentor, I guess, his approach to dealing with patients. And it wasn't, this is not just, and I can't even paraphrase it properly. The thing that impressed me was you looked at this as a whole person that has needs that you can meet, or that you're going to make every effort to meet. And then if you can't, of course, as you said, but you've had pretty good success in meeting those needs.
Yeah, well, it's not fair to say that we, solve every equation or riddle that comes to the office, but I am a little bit perplexed when we don't at least improve health. We may not completely fix the problem because, we're designed to wear out and we move on to the next phase, but I think we can always contribute to the quality of life. And in many times when people are just, have been through the ringer and they come to the office, a lot of times we're able to put their lives back together. We actually have a blog about this called the dailydosevitaminh.com. It's our blog.
It's not can anybody get on there?
Yes, anybody can get on there. dailydosevitaminh.com. And you'll see literally we have hundreds of testimonials. I think we're putting them up consistently. I think there's over 50 of them there right now. And it shows people that basically have been everywhere or the medical system hasn't been able to help them, or other alternative medical practitioners haven't been able to help them. And they've come to the booming megatropolis of Pocatello, and we put them back together.
Isn't it interesting? It is to me. My field before I went into law enforcement in the military was medical. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm not some highly trained medical kind of guy. I'm basically like an LVN. But I find it very interesting that there are people who would, rather than attempt something new that might help, they would just cast it aside out of uninformed prejudice, however you want to say it, rather than say, well, this patient, we're not actually helping this patient with what we're doing, maybe somebody else can. Rather than try to take another step in another direction, they just shut it down.
And we have that, in the office as well. And my response to those patients is, you know what, no one has a monopoly on health care.
Right.
The medics don't have it. And we don't have it, and I think together we have a better chance of getting there.
Absolutely.
And bringing that together. But our mission statement in the office to be one of our healthcare providers is you have to promise that your ego won't get in the way of getting anybody better. We don't care what you do. We don't care where you go. And if we can be part of that treatment system, that's fantastic. But in some regards, and one of the best patient outcomes I've ever had is telling someone, my gun isn't big enough to shoot your prostate cancer, but this is exactly where to go. And because I was able to direct him to the right intervention, he believes that I saved his life. And that is actually one of the neatest feelings I've ever got. I didn't do anything for the patient other than to say, this is what you should do. And he wanted an alternative approach. This isn't appropriate at this time, but here's where to go. Unbelievable phone call. I'll never forget.
Well, you said you didn't do anything. It sounds to me like you did a great deal.
When I say anything, I didn't render the treatment.
Right.
We didn't try and put him on a treatment program. It was an advanced, cancer case. And I said, this is where you should go. This is the guy you need to see. And an amazing outcome. And 6 months later, to get the phone call calling up saying, thank you so much. I think I'm alive because you told me where to go, is equally as rewarding as giving someone the treatment.
Absolutely. One of the things that occurs to me is, in today's world, we're seeing more and more a movement toward natural medicine, yes. Natural healing, whether it's healing of the mind or healing of the body or both. And yet, here we have someone in this state who seems to have a very narrow perspective, and rather than even become educated, they would rather just service their friends, if that's the way, the people who are willing to pay the freight,
yes.
Rather than get into an area where they could be of real help. What do you hope to accomplish by running for, and in case I didn't make it clear, he is running for 28B against Kelly Packer. What is it you hope to accomplish when you're elected to that position?
Well, I think the most important thing and I didn't realize this until it was taken away. I mean, I think your civil rights are basically like oxygen. You know, they're only important to you when someone tries to take them away.
Yeah.
And as this thing progressed, as I went over and I testified in front of the legislature, one of the things that happened is I was sitting there and getting ready to give my testimony to the Senate. The bill that Packer had voted for had came out of the House, narrowly passed the House floor, had been put into the Senate. It went to the Senate Health and Welfare Committee. And as I was getting ready to my testimony, I started receiving retaliatory threats and innuendos or intimidation, whatever you want to call it. And I believe that you know, the First Amendment was not, it was important to me. It wasn't as important to me until my legislator said, if you do this, I'm trying to save you from yourself, and if you do this, we're going to repeal, you know, your Naturopathic Practice Act, and we're going to go after your chiropractic rules. And that was sent, you know, from her phone number to my lobbyist phone number. I have a copy of the text, and my lobbyist said, hey, you need to stand up and do something about this. They can't do that. And it was such an affront that someone would try and get in front of my First Amendment rights to petition government and speak that, you know, it was so bothersome. So we testified. Eventually the bill was tabled and amended and ended up not going anywhere.
Sorry.
And then what happened was I came home and I said, I'm never ever going to get involved in politics again. Like, I just want to take what I believe God put me on the earth to do and get my team together, and we're just going to focus on running a really good destination practice and facility. And that's when even more craziness happened. Because what happened was, after that hearing, the Idaho Attorney General shows up and says to our office, you know, we have been told that you're not in compliance with putting a healthcare facility together. And so there was an investigation launched against myself and our medical director, Dr. Vance. February 2nd, I got a notice from the state that they are closing the investigation on me. And I told my wife, this is great. You know, we're going to end this chapter and I can just keep working. And then on February 3rd, the Board of Medicine told our doctor that he cannot work there, or they were to move to disciplinary or sanction his license. He cannot, quote, word for word, quote, you cannot affiliate with any chiropractors. Unquote.
You know, this sounds like what happened back in, it was 1925, I think it was. Pardon me, a medical doctor who didn't like chiropractic, didn't like DOs, didn't like anybody except MDs, went out of his way to do exactly what they're doing to you.
Well, there's actually some significant case law about this, because in 1976 there was a group of chiropractors represented by an attorney named George McAndrews,
yes,
that sued the American Medical Association and the Joint Accreditation of Hospitals and Surgeons. I'm trying to think of the exact acronym. It took 17 years. It was settled in 1993, and there was a permanent injunction placed against any institution, affiliation, trade association that limited interprofessional development or interprofessional communication. And they call it the Wilkes decision. And when this letter came from the medical board, I said to Dr. Vance, I just don't think that you can do this. I don't think you can do this. And in fear for his livelihood and they threatening to take away his license, he left the office February 21st, moved several hours away, and the hundreds of thousands of dollars that we'd spent in training and marketing and interrupted all the doctor-patient relationship was gone. We actually went over, our attorney called the Board of Medicine attorney and had a discussion. We were listening, and when we got done, the attorney said, man, Jason, I don't know what you've done to make someone mad. I don't think that they can do this, but if I were you, I would move. I would sell your office. I'd try and fight them legislatively or try and divide them in court. But this is, you made the wrong people upset. You know,
this is mind-boggling in the 21st century. And this is already, as you pointed out, this is already settled law.
Yes.
This is not new ground that's being explored. This is settled law. It's mind-boggling to me that a sitting legislator would go after the industry and you personally, and that the Attorney General would join in on this. The Attorney General.
Well, it wasn't necessarily. It was the Attorney General investigation. They wanted to see if it was. They closed the investigation. Then they said that their medical doctor couldn't affiliate with alternative medicine providers, not just me, but any alternative providers. I called up the attorney that won the lawsuit that's in the documentary,
Yes.
Undoctored, which you can get online. Undoctored, the movie, it's on Facebook, or you can get it at the office. It's by Jeff Hayes Films, and naturally I'm in it, so I think it's great.
Oh, of course, you had a starring role.
So a starring role in the documentary, but I called him and I said, you won't believe what they're trying to do in Idaho. And he said, they can't do that. They cannot do that. It's a violation of law. And so he called up the Federal Trade Commission and asked for a formal investigation. And then when I declared for office, what's interesting, I declared for office March 9th. All I did is register for the state because I was hoping someone else would run. I didn't want to get involved in politics because I really, really enjoy practice. If I won the lottery, I would do exactly what I'm doing now. I haven't worked a day in my life. This is what I enjoy doing. I enjoy working with people. It's really enjoyable to me. And I was hoping someone else would run, and I had a group come over to the office, and they said, Jason, we have the perfect candidate to run against Kelly Packer. And I said, what do I have to do? I want to contribute financially. I want to tell my patients about it. I want to tell my family about it. I want to tell my friends about this. I will go out in the neighborhoods, and I will knock, and I will put up flyers and stuff like that. And I said, who is it?
Little did you know.
And they said, you. And I said, oh, no, I'm not going to do this. I've got, and we thought about it, prayed about it over the weekend, and my wife got up Sunday morning and said, Jason, this was about March 5th or 6th in there. And she said, I don't want you to run. And I said, honey, thank you. Someone else that has the time to do this. Not that it's not important, but I have some requirements in the businesses that I run and that I own. And she said, no, you don't let me finish. I don't want you to run. I insist that you run. I insist that you stand up for yourself. And I insist that you stand up for what you believe in and set the example for our 5 sons. Because eventually someone's going to pick on them, and they've got to know how to deal with it, and you need to stand up for yourself. So that's why we decided to run. We declared March 9th. March 11th, my opponent went on a crazy Facebook rant that you can view, and said, I help you see through the lies, and I'm making the stuff up. And I have the texts, I have the emails. I mean, I'm happy to debate with her anytime, any place, anywhere, fact for fact, about how she treated a constituent and literally violated my First Amendment rights.
Well, and it's, here again, I don't want to beat it to death, but it's mind-boggling to me that, first of all, that a legislator would do this, but then that the Attorney General's office, who should know better, would even have the investigation. All they had to do was go to case law and say, oops, this is settled, nothing to talk about here.
Yes.
But they didn't. They chose not to do that, which would seem to indicate that there's, if nothing else, a little duplicity perhaps somewhere along the line.
Well, what was interesting about that is after I visited with the attorney and I said, we've got to do something, they filed a Federal Trade Commission request for investigation for antitrust and violation of that case law. And then what happened is even more interesting is the day we decided to do our big campaign kickoff. We released out a note out to our patient file. We have 26,000 patients in our email program. And we sent out basically a call to action. This is why I'm doing this. I'm standing up for not only myself and my family and my way of life and what we've created here in Pocatello, Idaho, but I'm standing up for all the patients for their health care access. Yep. And later that day, we got a letter from the Board of Medicine that says, after further review, we are closing the file on the medical doctor, and we are withdrawing any concerns that Dr. Vance or other medical doctors or physician's assistants can practice a medicine in association with Dr. West and or any other chiropractor. And it was interesting that occurred after we really made the legislative push and declare for office, which my attorney said, either you do that or you really need to move. It's been that oppressive.
It's kind of like if you're running a used car lot here and you want to sell cars and you can't do it next to the Ford dealer.
Exactly.
I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. And going back to, and here again, folks, it's on this film. I can't urge you strongly enough to get this film and view it, because this whole thing about medical doctors not being allowed to, it wasn't a matter of they weren't just allowed to practice with anybody with chiropractic. They weren't even allowed to be in the same club with them, go to a movie where they were. I mean, this was craziness, but this was in the 1920s and 30s. And by 1976, this was pretty much resolved. 1990, 93, was it?
Yeah, 93, the court case was rendered.
Yeah, and so, I mean, this is settled law. There's nothing new here.
Right.
And yet this legislator, and sadly, Lawrence Wasden's office, whoever initiated this, decided to go on this witch hunt, for lack of a better term. And worse than that, they're not just depriving you and me as members of the public of another source for treatment, another source for getting our needs met medically or whatever. What they're doing is they're going after an entire industry, and especially going after this man because he had the audacity to stand up to them. Where would we be if, and this goes back to what you were saying about the civil rights, suppose Rosa Parks hadn't sat in that bus and demanded to be able to be treated like everybody else? Where would we be? I mean, this is so old world, it rather boggles the mind.
Well, and I feel that the message from my legislator was, if you come over here and you voice your opinion to legislation that I want passed,
I'm going to slam you.
I'm going to get you.
Yeah, that part is, besides being, well, I suppose there's some legal term, but it's very offensive. It's very offensive to think that a public person would do that. Now, there's an interesting thing here also, and you kind of touched on the edge of it, and I don't want to make you a martyr in it, but I have to tell you, folks, Dr. West does not need to take 3 months of his life every year to go to Boise when he's got a thriving practice, and yet he's willing to do that for all of us. Not just for himself, for all of us. He feels so strongly about this that he's willing to put himself out there and literally, and I'm not going to embarrass him by asking questions, but he's actually going to be taking a financial loss in order to do this. Now, that $16,000 a year that a legislator makes probably isn't going to make up for the loss of patient time or anything else.
But Ralph, it's not. It's more important than that, because when you stand up for something that you believe and say that this isn't right, you empower other people to do the same.
Exactly.
And that's why we decided to do it. When I say we, my wife and I decided, right, this is not a decision that we took lightly. It's not a half-baked idea, and it's not something that we're going to try and do. We're going to give it our all to do it.
Well, I suspect you're going to find a lot of people that want to help you with this. I'm hoping, and I don't want to go on a cause or a crusade here, but I'm hoping that you folks watching this program are going to be as, I don't know, angry is not the word, but as upset by the absurdity of this as I am. And I'm hoping that you'll decide to check into Dr. West's campaign and see what you can do to perhaps get involved or help out or whatever you can do, because he's not putting himself out there as a knight on a shining on the horse in a shining armor. That's not his idea. What he's doing is he's fighting a battle that affects all of us, not just him.
And Ralph, that's important because if this happens to me, it can happen to any of the constituents.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we decided to do was, hey, you know what? I believe that the future is really bright for Idaho. I mean, I love Pocatello. I love that hometown kid that's made good. I can be in different cities. I can go anywhere and start the practice that we have. And for our national presence, we can attract people to get there. But I want it to be here. And so one of the things that we've done is our cause is we have some sunglasses that say "Vote Jason West" on the side. We're cruising around town in a 1950 panel van that if you'll honk or when I stop.
It's a big green van, you can't miss it.
Big green van, and that we hand out sunglasses and we say, well, look, the future's so bright for Idaho that it really hurts your eyes if we do some things that we should be doing as a legislature, which is to say that everybody's going to lower taxes and that we're not going to have any taxes, I don't think is reasonable, but the least amount of taxes possible. And that we put back in the decisions to help education at a common level, and Common Core has to go. And the Second Amendment, inviolable. And for me, the most important, the First Amendment, the freedom of speech, is the most important thing that I'm running out, because that was really, really something that I took for granted until I was standing in front of the Senate Health and Welfare, and the legislator said, hey, if you do this, we're going to do this and this. We're going to do some retaliatory things for you. And all of a sudden, those amendments, I thought they were important before, but they are sacred.
It's an interesting thing, and I heard somebody say this on the radio, and it hadn't occurred to me, although you're kind of bringing it back. There's a reason that the freedom of speech is the First Amendment.
Right.
There's a reason for that. Right. And there's a reason why the Second Amendment is about protecting your right to bear arms. There's a reason it was the number 2 thing that they thought of. Now, the gun thing may or may not be as important to some people as it is to me, but I think it is to most people in Bannock County.
Right.
But certainly our First Amendment rights, our right to redress, to be able to talk to our legislator and say, look, here's my problem, and I think you've got something, I need your help, or I have a complaint, whatever it is, and not just be shut out.
Yeah, at least give me some consideration.
At least let me talk to you.
Right.
Yeah, and it's not like it was going to take all day for her.
And really it comes down, and the third most important thing is the healthcare access.
Yes.
Is being able to not have the government interfere with the doctor-patient relationship, to go to the doctor of your choice. And really when it comes down, we have got to fix healthcare.
Yes.
And throwing money at healthcare and throwing more regulations, and I really don't think is the answer. And it's a complex issue that there's a lot of moving targets involved in it. However, just saying that we mandate based upon where you went to school, not what you learned, and then and creating problems for patient choice. I mean, we need to have healthcare. Basically where the cream rises to the top, that you go to the doctor that helps you to get the best outcomes.
Well, now, and that triggers another thought. You teach.
Yes.
You're a teaching doctor.
Yes.
Would you like to talk about that?
Well, we've taught all over the world. My dad and I have taught a series of seminars together. I just had one January 29th in how to create a destination practice in Salt Lake. I've lectured in Australia. We've been all over the United States. We lecture everywhere because what happens is the patients will come to Pocatello. We do something to improve their health, and they go back to Dallas. They go back to LA. Frequently the doctor calls and say, what do you put together? And really what we're doing is just fine-tuning what my great-grandfather taught my grandfather taught my dad, and my dad taught me about how to really to help people. So the teaching component, I think, is really, really important. And doctors ask us all the time. And when my dad was alive, they would say, why would you guys teach us? Why would you give out your secret recipes? And I loved learning this gem from my dad. There's no shortage of sick people. And if we would remember that in healthcare, I think it would do a lot to get rid of the competitiveness. And really it matters is that the patient improves. And if you be a part of that process, you're a team player and you get to participate in changing lives. If your ego gets in the way, or you get basically segmented in where you went to school and what you were doing, it really, really is problematic. And we're bigger than that.
We are. And hopefully we'll get bigger than that. Now, where does your campaign go from here?
Well, the campaign is getting the message out, and go to our website, votejasonwest.com. We're having a series of not only ways to digitally participate, but we're out in the community, and I really am anticipating that I'm going to have a nice showing. I'm going to win this thing. You
are indeed. From everything I've heard, I can't see how you could fail. Well, unless they can throw $3 million at Kelly, which looks like they may want to try to do that. Well, anything to add on here that I've missed? I hope I've covered. It's not just an interview. What we're trying to do here is bring information to you, the public, information that is critical to the way our community operates. When you have a segment of the community that's being attacked by our own government, this is something we all need to be concerned about. So this is not just a show to get Dr. West on here and talk to him. Certainly is that, but it's really to get people motivated to realize we're all vulnerable. And just illustrating it, here's a man of substance who works hard, has an honest practice, has integrity. He does all those things that we all would like to think that we do, and he's being attacked for it. So we need to all of us get involved. So our information is votejasonwest.com. Or on Facebook, it's facebook.com/Jason West. And we have a YouTube channel that we're having a wire run. And all of our platform information is up on our website. And, vote for me, Jason West, on the May 17th primary. Very good. Jason, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on, Ralph. Best of luck to you. Pleasure to have you. Best of luck to you. We're going to be looking for you. Now, when is the election? What's the date? May 17th. Is when it's for all the marbles. Okay. There's no Democratic challenger. Whoever wins the May 17th primary wins the election. Be there or be square, folks. Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. Well, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed that. Wasn't that a great backdrop there? Man, I'd love to have that all the time. But we have people here that work very hard to make me look good in spite of all my efforts. So we're not complaining, just that it was easy to get spoiled with that set there. This is the DVD that we mentioned on the film, and I want to mention it to you again. In a moment, I always tell you get a pencil and paper and have it handy, and I forgot. But the way we opened it, I couldn't tell you that. So I'm going to come back to that. But I want to tell you, so you can write it down. But I want to tell you about this film. You can go to World Wide Web, www, and it's one word, Undoctored the Movie. Okay, just undoctoredthemovie.com. I urge you to get a copy of this and to look at it and to view it. It is extraordinarily enlightening about what has happened in the field of chiropractic and the attacks they've endured for many years. And it's astonishing to me that here we are revisiting that here in Idaho, something that has already been settled by law. I mean, the Supreme Court has looked at the things and they've said, leave these people alone, let them do their business, get out of their business, whatever. And yet here we are in 2016 with case law and settled off was settled back in the 90s, 70s and the 90s, fighting the same fight. Now, it is of my opinion, I think I shared it on there, that anybody who practices medicine should be allowed to use any form of medical treatment. I don't care if you want to have a shaman with a gourd rattle and feathers running around a fire. If that makes your patient feel better, then do it. Why would you not, as a healer, not use every possible remedy? And that's one of the problems with this, because the field of chiropractic has been very much misunderstood. And we have legitimate people like Dr. West who are doing remember, he's a destination doctor. People come from around the world as well as around the nation because he does good. And yet Kelly Packer and her cronies, the Idaho Medical Association, Big Pharma, and a number of other groups, the insurance people, would really like to do away with chiropractic and naturopathic medicine, make it impossible to practice. And sadly, because Dr. West had the temerity, if you will, to stand up to them, Kelly Packer decided to make it a personal thing and has attacked him personally. And that's what got him into the fight. And we're so glad he is in the fight. So here again, this is Undoctored the Movie. That's all run together as one word, undoctoredthemovie.com. Get a copy of this and view it. It is very, very revealing. Recently, if you've been following the paper, there's this dust-up now between Kelly Packer and the Idaho Freedom Foundation, run by Wayne Hoffman out of Boise. Wayne is very much a constitutional conservative, and he doesn't act. Some people say he's a lobbyist. He really isn't. He's an educator, if anything else, and a chronicler, a voice to us, we the people, as to what's going on in Boise. And to be honest with you, I'm not even sure all of our legislators know what's going on in Boise. So it's good to have somebody like the Idaho Freedom Foundation. Now, there are those people, his detractors would have you think that he's backed by super PACs or whatever it is. I can tell you from just what little knowledge I have, most of the money going into Wayne Hoffman's, the Idaho Freedom Foundation, is from little guys like me. $15 here, $20 there, $10 here. They are not being supported by huge PACs like Kelly Packer is. But there was an article that was on April 7th, just a few days ago, in the Idaho Reporter. And this is an interesting article. I want to share this with you. I'm going to just read it. It's a little bit lengthy, but we'll get around to it. It says, Representative Kelly Packer, Republican from McCammon, sought job leads in the Treasure Valley from elected officials and legislative lobbyists. A 2-year term House member running for re-election this year, Packer made her appeal almost 1 year ago in a mass message from a private email account. She wrote lobbyists and lawmakers for job hunting assistance after her husband was transferred from the now-shuttered Pocatello U.S. Postal Service Processing Center to the agency's Boise facility. On April 29, 2015, not quite a year ago, Packer wrote, quoting, I'm reaching out to you to ask you for your help in locating a new career for me in the Treasure Valley. She went on, I would greatly appreciate any help you can give me in finding something for me to do there. In the message, Packer described her business experience and credentials and cited her business management degree, complete with an emphasis in marketing. Note, at article's end is the complete, I'll give the email message. Packer also highlighted her public service. She wrote, "In my spare time, I also function as the representative for District 28. She didn't put B, but it's B. A job that I love, but it's her spare time. I have worked hard to successfully manage the important responsibilities that are part of that honor." At the end of her email, Packer reiterated her request for assistance. "Please feel free to email me any leads, give me a call, or give my information to anyone you may know is looking for a hardworking, dependable employee." The McCammon Republican expounded upon her 2015 message to legislators and lobbyists in an email today to IdahoReporter.com. She wrote, "I thought I was moving because my husband had been transferred to Boise from the USPS. However, he was transferred back to Pocatello on August 8th, and we are no longer moving. I'm no longer looking." IdahoReporter.com questioned Packer further about contacting lobbyists and elected officials for job leads and if she saw a possible ethical problem in her email. Her answer? "No. I contacted my friends in Boise, and most everyone I know there is an elected official or lobbyist, with my private email to explain my situation and to ask for them to keep their eyes and ears open for any possible jobs," Packer explained. She added that she didn't ask for anything out of the ordinary. "I explained that I wasn't asking for any favors, but if anyone knew of something that I could apply for, I would appreciate the help," she wrote Thursday. Boise State University political science professor Scott Yenner said he believes Packer's request wasn't inappropriate, which tells you a lot about our education system. He says, "As long as there's no quid pro quo involved, I would see nothing wrong with this," Yenner said. "There is a temptation for wrong, no doubt." He doesn't see anything wrong with it, but there is a temptation for wrong, no doubt. But legislators in Idaho do not have full-time jobs, and I suppose that's supposed to make it all right. Yenner, a member of the Idaho Freedom Foundation's Board of Scholars, added, "Finding leads would not seem beyond the pale. However," Yenner wrote, "a lead that led to a job that led to a change in voting, that would be a problem." Are we to truly believe that there would not be some sort of a quid pro quo? Are these legislators so lily white and snow-driven clean that we're supposed to believe that? I'm sorry, but I'm a little bit more cynical than that. Dr. Hannah S. Callaghan, Director of Government Ethics at the Markula Center for Applied Ethics at California's Santa Clara University, wouldn't comment directly on Packer's request, but did remark generally about similar situations. Quoting, "The fact that we are dealing with lobbyists gives rise to possible appearance of impropriety," Callaghan said, told IdahoReporter.com Wednesday. "In maintaining that public trust, perceptions are important. Perceptions are everything." She added that public officials must use extra care to ensure public trust in government. Public officials have a fiduciary duty to put their public interest before their own, Callaghan said. "The appearance of loyalty is important to maintain the public trust." Representative Kelly Packer's April 29th email to elected officials and lobbyists. Now this is not the whole one, so I'm going to actually read to you the actual email that Kelly Packer sent out, and I think we have enough time to cover it. I'm going to leave the grammatical errors and everything in there. I'll try to read it, but I have to tell you it's not easy to read. In my opinion, it writes like a high school freshman, maybe not quite to that level, but the way you might expect from a high school freshman to write. She says, and this is on an email, "Bad behavior on the part of anyone is still bad behavior. I spent a lot of time soul-searching last night about where I'm at, what I'm doing, and what matters most, along with thoughts on my responses to the Idaho Freedom Foundation and my opponent. I was reminded that contention is of the devil, and that I was helping to perpetuate contention in our community, in Idaho's legislative process, and in our state, which made me sad. I decided that I hadn't handled some things as well as I could have, and that I want to do better. Pardon me. I also decided that I wanted to publicly apologize to each of you, to IFF, which doesn't mean that I want to start receiving your emails or how you rank your bills, though, and to Jason West for how I've responded to personal attacks, criticism, and things I believe are true untrue and or wrong. As I tried to rationalize that it is natural to want to fight back when someone attacks us, especially when we feel those attacks are unwarranted and the words that are used are untrue, I was quickly reminded that the natural man is an enemy of God, and that I needed to learn to control my natural man if I ever want to be the person who God wants me to be and knows that I am capable of becoming. I want to be that person more than I could ever explain. So I also decided to publicly commit to try to be more civil in my responses or to not respond at all. Please note the word try. I am plumbed with a strong aversion to, see if I can find this. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. Basically, she said it was a fight response. As I tried to rationalize that it is natural to want to fight back when someone attacks us, especially when we feel those attacks are unwarranted and the words that are used are untrue. Okay, it was a repeat. I'm sorry. This was all part of the same email, and somehow it got repeated. I am plumbed with a strong aversion to bullying and lying, and have always struggled with reacting to those things before thinking for as long as I can remember, even clear back to elementary school. Trust me, I wrote "I will not fight in school" on the blackboard more times than I like to admit. I am committed to do my best to try again every time I fail and to hopefully encourage a kinder, more civil and collaborative process, community, and world. I'm reading it the way it's written. As I thought about just quitting and returning home where I can be myself without being criticized, I contemplated how my parents have always taught me that we all have choices in everything we do. I'll post a great explanation on that after this post, but that we always need to remember that our choices will determine our future and the world we live in. I decided I wasn't ready to quit. I decided that I still want to work hard to make a positive difference where I can. I recognize that no matter what I do or say, there will always be people around to criticize and question, but as long as I do what I truly believe is, bear with me, I've got to find this in here, right, if I know I can look my Savior in the eye without regret, then I need to let what others say and think roll of my back as I continue to move forward in purpose. It is between Him and me anyway. Another post I'll make here in a few minutes. I will make mistakes because I'm human, but I will always give it my best, try to do what is right, and will work hard as I can to be part of the solution rather than part of the problem. Thank you, each one of you, for your kindness, your support, your love. My life is filled with some of the greatest people this world has ever known. I am blessed to know you, to have you in my life, and to know that you're there for me. I welcome your help in being a better person, and I hope that I can also be a blessing in each of your lives. I love you all. So that was her mea culpa, or however you want to put it down. I don't know if you saw the same thing that I did. Of course, I know her, and so maybe I see something you won't, but I thought it was very self-serving, and quite honestly, I thought it was, it didn't resonate. I thought it was copying a plea. She has a way of doing this. She's done it in the past when she's been taken to task. First thing she'll say is, I'm doing the best I can and what I believe in. Not what I believe you believe in, but what I believe in. If that doesn't work, then she will attack whoever called her on the carpet. And if that doesn't work, then she resorts to the tears and, oh, poor me, please support me, I need your help. It's always been the same pattern with her. Well, anyway. So, and by the way, the Idaho Freedom Foundation, in the latest thing, it's not as complete as last year. I hope they're going to come out with one that is more complete. But in Idaho Freedom Foundation, on their index, their 2016 index, which came out March 21st, she gets a D-. She's just about half a point above Elaine Smith, a Democrat, a liberal Democrat, which will kind of give you an idea of where she really is. All right, let's see what we've got. There are other things I could go into there, but I've got to quickly hit this because I only have a couple minutes. By the way, I don't know if you saw these sunglasses sitting there, but I'm going to share this with you. You remember that Dr. West said that the future in Idaho is so bright you're going to need sunglasses. If you see his big green truck, it's a 1950 GMC panel. It's green, and it's got a wrap around there with his picture and all that on it. If you can stop it, or if it stops, you know, at a parking place or something, you go over there and ask them. They'll give you a pair of glasses. They are UV rated. They're pretty nice glasses, actually, because the future in Idaho is so bright, you're going to need sunglasses. So, and my add-on to that is, go west, young man, go west. And you can read that Horace Greeley style, or you can read it politically. Well, anyway, so there was an interesting thing in the paper recently, and I'm sure you saw it, and I don't know if I'm going to have time to read the whole thing. Yeah, I can. Anti-Muslim DVD distributor not connected to campus. Idaho State University officials believe an individual from outside the area was responsible for distributing DVDs containing anti-Muslim propaganda on Monday. Now, I didn't see this. I haven't seen it. I'd love to see if this was actually propaganda or if this was educational. There is a difference. Propaganda means educating or informing, but it's been made into a dirty word, even though it's a very useful word. But I would be interested to see if this was, if the liberal, progressive, you know, let's feel sorry for all the bad guys and the heck with the Constitution set, if they're just copying a plea. I'd like to see that. It's funny, I never get these things. I hear these evil things, like a few years back where somebody was getting rocks with some kind of DVD attached to it that was supposed to be hate mail. I never saw it. It only seems to go to the college people and to the educators and all that. Never comes to me. I'd like to see what the thing said. I'd like to see if it was really as evil as it's portrayed, or was it just telling the truth about Islam? I don't know. Well, we're almost out of time. Boy, that time went fast for me. Of course, we already had the interview in the can, as they say, so it was going to go faster. I sure hope that you will spread the word to go west, young man, because the future is so bright, you're going to need sunglasses. And I hope you'll join us again next week. In the meantime, God bless you and yours. Please pray for our nation, pray for Israel, pray for and love your family. God bless you. Thank you for joining us. See you next time. Good night.